So welcome to our July webinar. We're doing Smartsheet Forms today. We're going to be having a focused look at Smartsheet's core product and how the forms area works within a sheet, looking specifically at the conditional logic and how to make that work for you and what you need to do to the grid in order to get your conditional logic to flow smoothly. And once I've done a little bit of a demonstration on that, we're going to move on to an enhanced web form solution that James has written, just to show you the boundaries or what you can do that explores the outside of the Smartsheet world within a Smartsheet dashboard and demonstration. So starting us off, then I'm going to stop sharing the screen and just go to Richard, and he'll just introduce us all.
Hi, well, welcome to the Smarter Business Process Tips and Tricks webinar. We've got attendees from all over the world, literally. So give us a wave and thank you very much for joining us today. I'm Richard Reimel. I'm the founder and the CEO of a team of highly skilled solution providers, of which I'm very proud. We are co-located in the UK and North America, and we service clients literally worldwide. Our team at Smarter Business Processes are constantly working to help those companies who are new to Smartsheet and want to build out smart workflows quickly and efficiently. And then there's those experienced users who need to push Smartsheet to the maximum. So we've used API connectivity to create a number of low-cost automation subscription tools out of the box that enhance the basic Smartsheet tools. So let's just think about the reason why we're looking at forms. And the simple answer is that we get feedback from especially new users that the single greatest advantage from utilizing Smartsheet comes with the utilization of forms. And the smarter we make those forms, the greater the user experience and the greater the benefit when you're initiating activities and workflows. And so that's what's driven this webinar requirement from the community. So here we go, back to Debbie, and take it away. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. So back to my little presentation here. So we're going to be having a look at forms, as Richard said. So what are forms? Forms are useful for collecting new data from users. So if you have a grid type sheet with a request type database, then you can collect those requests through the use of a form. And it means that your end users don't need to log into Smartsheet to do their requests. You can make a form nice and user-friendly, and the filling out of a form can be done from an intranet site or a Smartsheet dashboard, which you can publish. It just makes that collection of data really easy. You don't have to try and copy and paste people's answers from sheet to sheet. The form will update the relevant grid directly, and you can show all your analysis that's already in place on your grid out on your reports and dashboards instantly. You can use forms for collecting new data. You can also use forms in the form of an update request type form for updating rows that are currently in a sheet. But you can't use the forms menu area for updating records in Smartsheet. So we might have a little look at how those two items are different. The new features with Smartsheet Forms. So Forms has been around for a long time. Around about a year ago, we were given conditional logic within Forms, but just recently that conditional logic has extended to headers and dividers too, just to make that end user experience just that little bit more enhanced through the use of these forms. So I shall just come out of there and go into my Smartsheet. So we've got a July 2021 tips and tricks workspace. So as the same as our other webinars, at the end of this webinar, we will be sending out an evaluation form, and on receipt of a filled in evaluation form, there is an area where you can request access to this workspace so that you can come and explore this demonstration model at your will, if you'd like to. Within this workspace, I do have a tips and tricks sheet. So this tips and tricks sheet will just list out all of the areas within the sheets and explain how they've been set up and why they've been set up. So it's, what is the item? How is it used? what is the scenario that that item is fitting, what are the tips we would say, and what are the benefits of using these tips. So this is just a little worksheet I've put together for you to explain what it is that I am doing within the demonstration. So like I say, if you fill in an eval form, you can have access to this tips and tricks sheet, as well as the demonstration workspace. Within my demonstration model, I'm going to go straight into the dashboard and just show you what it is that we are aiming for by using a form. So the scenario within this webinar is the same scenario that we used in January. So in January, we created a webinar all around an office booking system, because in this world, when we all went home to work, we are now finding the need of going back into the office, but we can't go back to the office the way we used to use the office. The offices now have a little bit more spread out and limited desk availability, and you need to book your space within that office. So we've done a demonstration which takes the office bookings that we did in January, and we've just enhanced the model a little bit more to put a little bit more conditional logic into the form so that we can explore how the logic works here. So we've just got some people joining. I'll just wait for them to come into that room. So welcome to those of you that are joining. I've just explained the scenario that we're doing today. So we're just having a look at the office booking system that we started in January. We've just enhanced it a little bit for July to make the form the focus of that demonstration model. So our made-up scenario is that we have two offices within this made-up company. The offices are based in Leeds and London, so they're two UK places. In Leeds, we have 4 desks available to book, and in London, we have 6. I've kept the demonstration model down to quite small numbers purely for the benefit of demonstrating. And if I had like 28 spaces in one and 40 in another, I'm going to have to sit and fill in this form a lot so that you can see how the availability report works. So keeping it simple is what I'm doing today. Within Leeds, we have 2 meeting rooms available, and within London, we have 3 meeting rooms available, and they are booked out for whole days at a time. So you can only book 1 meeting room per day. So these are the rules that are running my demo here today. So within Smartsheet, I have a sign-up sheet, which people would fill in, but I also have a current availability report on the dashboard as well. So if you were a user, I would be sharing this whole dashboard to you. Instead of just sharing the form, I would share the dashboard instead. And within this, I would put in my email address, because that's how you know who to contact if there's an issue with my reservation. I would put in the date that I would like my booking for. So let's have a look. There's some spaces available on, let's say, the 23rd. So if I go to the 23rd of July, I'm going to go into London, and I can see already on my availability that I have some availability on the 23rd. So in here, I'm just going to say, I want to go to the London office. Do I want an empty desk, a desk with equipment, or a meeting room? I'm going to go for an empty desk, and it just comes up, and this is the logic working. This label was not on the screen just a moment ago, but because I chose the London office and the empty desk option, it's just telling me London has 6 desks. Look at the availability report to see how many are available before reserving your chosen date. So here's my availability report. There's 4 available. I know that I can submit that request, and it shouldn't be a problem. So I've submitted the request, and if I now refresh my Smartsheet, hopefully my reports will update. And now there are 3 spaces available in London on that day. So that's how this is working. And I just wanted to show you the logic that we have built in. So I'll go for the 23rd again. And if I went for an empty desk, then I only get a label telling me to just check on this report before submitting. But if I go for a desk with equipment, I get a different label. So, well, I get the label, sorry, and then I get a heading and a divider. which wasn't there before. And I need to give a few more details because I've asked for a desk with equipment already. It's saying, what equipment do you require? Do you require a monitor, a keyboard, or a mouse? If I just say I just need a mouse because I can't use the touchpad on my laptop, then I could submit the request just like that, and no other conditional logics going on. Same with the keyboard. Maybe I don't like the way my keys work on my laptop and I'd prefer to have my screen a bit further back. So an external keyboard is usually quite handy, but again, no logic is behind the keyboard or the mouse options. If I click on monitor, it's going to ask me, well, how many monitors do you require for this day in the London office? And if I have a look in the London office, there is one monitor available, so I can only really request one there. But sometimes users might want to book more than one monitor. If you've got your laptop screen, you might have like a bank of 3 monitors that you need for your work. So that's why we've added that bit of conditional logic there. I hit submit. You can see how that logic is working, how the behavior of the form is working. So it's always asking for some static data, which is, you know, who are you, what data are you looking at? But then here we have some options that are driving the logic for the rest of the form. If I went for a London meeting room on the 24th, I have a look on the 24th, none of the meeting rooms are booked yet, so they are all still available. And I could go for one of these 3, which are the 3 options for the London office. Then I might think, oh, didn't mean London, I meant Leeds. So I could go to my Leeds meeting room and the form will update to show me the options that are pertinent to Leeds rather than London. And I can book the Harvard room. So can you see how this form is working? It's having static data, but on entry of one of these 6 options, we're getting logic telling us a little bit about the office that's been chosen, and then a little bit more detail required. And what am I on? I haven't even put a date for this one. This is the 29th. Still me, I'm doing a lot of bookings. You'll see this is just dummy data. It doesn't matter that I've booked absolutely everything in this whole scenario. You get the idea of what's going on. So we've got the 29th and there's loads of monitors available. So I'm going to request 3 and submit. If I just hit refresh, all of those options that I've pushed through the submission will update on my availability report. And we can see that I've booked a room. I've only got 2 spaces left there. I've got 1 space less in the Leeds office, and I've got 3 monitors now available for Leeds. So it's working in collaboration with each other. If I was just using this dashboard and I wanted to sort of drill down a little bit to see, well, who has booked some of the spaces. So like we've got the 3rd of August here is full in London. I could go to my who is in London and I could see in this report that the 3rd of August is full. And if I click on my dashboard there, it will open up my grouping and summarizing report, and I could drill down to see who has made those bookings. And this is what you would do if it went overbooked. So if I just whiz back to my dashboard, within this scenario, I have an overbooking in Leeds on the 27th. So there is some automation on my sheet that will tell the owner of this process that there has been an overbooking made in Leeds on the 26th. So what they would do is go to the who is in Leeds, open up that grouping and summarizing report, drill down on to the 23rd, no, what date was it? Oh, I can't remember what date it was, 26th. There it is. Oh, sorry about that. My brain didn't work then. So I've got 5 and they're all me. So I'm just going to say, well, there's only 4 desks. So this last one, I'm going to mark as overbooked and hit save. And then when I come back, that overbooked, once it refreshes, will go just back to full. And the person that made that booking will now receive an email saying, I'm really sorry, the request you made was overbooked. That booking has now been deleted. So that's how my scenario works. And what I was hoping to do within this presentation or demonstration is just to show you how I built this form in order to make this functionality as streamlined as it is. So if I go back to my workspace, we're in July 2021, within the workspace. So I was looking at my dashboard, but the Office sign up is the sheet that's driving that main form in the dashboard. So let me go into Office sign up. So the sheet doesn't look that great at the moment, but here I have a collapsible area. So within the top section, this first 30 rows, this is where all my statistics lie that are driving my reports on the dashboard. So I'm saying all my availability is being worked out in the top, all the rooms that are booked are being worked out at the top. And I've got all these pale yellow help columns, which I'll talk about in just a moment. The white columns you can see, lead spaces, London spaces, rooms, monitors. Those are the columns that you saw along with the date column in the availability report in the top left section of the dashboard. Below this separator line, I have in my grey area all of the data from the forms that was filled in. So I've just organized my grid to have all the form data up the left side of the sheet, and then all of my helper columns and my statistics, the data driving my reports are on the right-hand side. It just makes it easier when you're maintaining the data as the user of this sheet. When I was designing the sheet, they were all intermingled with each other. As I thought of them, they all popped in. So reorganizing the sheet is, you could have it on separate sheets. Yes, so we've had, Eleonora had a question there in the chat window. So yes, we could have the form in one sheet and then all of the statistics. I scroll along here and scroll up, you can see some of these statistics here. Instead of using the date column on the current sheet, I could use reference another sheet to grab that date column and compare it to a date, grab the office data from another sheet. So all of my statistics could be on a separate sheet, yes. So hopefully that answers your question. I've just got it on the one sheet, just for ease of demonstration. So the forms then, how do we get these forms working? So if I go to my forms menu and have a look at manage forms option, I've only got one form, and that's the form that I showed in the demonstration. So if I just quickly open it up into the design view, you can see that we have different areas of the form being populated. And I've added extra detail to the field settings for each of these areas. So when you first pop the email address into a form, you only get the header and the box. So you add your help text as you see fit in the help text property next to that item. So anything on the right-hand side is extra information that you're giving to your form for the item in the middle that's selected. If I click on Office Booking and type, the actual column is just called Office. So I've used the label tool here to put a different heading on my form, just to make it a bit more friendly to the end user. These are the labels that pop up with the conditional logic. So these are just the heading description area, where I've only filled in the description side. If I filled in the header as well, you can see that it comes up as a larger text, and I didn't really want that larger text on the form. I just wanted a label to come up on the form. So I ignored the heading area and just used that description area for small little bits of help text popping up on the form. So that's a nice little tip there. We've got the divider lines, and now it's these labels and dividers and these headings that you can now use conditional logic on, and you can see my little conditional logic logo is on each of these areas. So I think what I will do, time permitting, is a little bit of time to just very quickly show you how that was created. Oh, that is a very good question. So Ole has just asked a question in the chat window. How do you handle a situation where the form submitter wants to update the data submitted? So there are two ways of doing it. You can send that submitter an update request using the automation area, or you could send them, if I scroll down here, on the row menu of your sheet, there is a send update request option where you could send them all of the columns, and then once they get the email, they see all of the data in the columns that they previously submitted, and then they can overwrite the data in that form. But the submitter can't do it, Eleanor, you're absolutely right. They would have to request that. But when I hand over to James, which I will do in about 5 or 10 minutes, he'll show you a web form solution whereby you can update the data. Okay, so the submitter can do it through James's solution, but not through the Smartsheet solution as it stands. They have to sort of send emails and ask for update requests to be sent to them. So it's not as easy, unfortunately, using just Smartsheet. Let me just do a quick demo on getting that logic working. So all I've done is I've just hit create a form, and it's dumped every single column from my sheet into a form, and I don't need all the columns. So I'm just going to remove the ones that I don't need. Email address I do need, so that is required. Office is required. Equipment required is not, but I can keep that on. I want these as options. So I'm just doing this nice and quickly. How do you make the background the green color? That's a good question. So this background color is linked to the colors and logos of the workspace. You can get to different colors in your workspace. I'll show you how to do that once I've come out of this form, because I can't get to my button. It's down here in my users area. So hold that thought, Beverly, and I will come back to that in just a moment. I don't need overbooking. I want my data a bit higher. Right, all of these were helper columns, so none of these are needed on the form. I think that's what I need. So I've got email address, office, and date. So who are you? What is the date? Where is the office? And then I had some labels coming up. So I've just clicked on heading and description, and it's popped itself down at the bottom. And I'm just for time saying Leeds has 4. And I'll just leave it at that. And I'll just remove the heading there. And I'll just do one more, because all I'm doing is proving a concept here. I'm not recreating the whole form. London has 6. There we go. So I want those to come up a little bit higher. And I'm just going to put divider in there as well. So at the moment, I've got who are you? What date do you want? What's your office that you'd like to book? And then dependent on that office answer, I'm then going to show and hide the rest of the items on this form dependent on that answer. So this is where we go to the logic area of the form. So if I click on logic and add some logic, I say when the office is London office empty desk, then only show the divider and the fact that London has 6 offices. So that's just that little bit of data. And add. I'm going to add another rule. When it's London office with equipment required, I want to ask the question. I want to show that we've got 6. Then I want an equipment required box to come up. And then I'm going to add that. And then I'm just going to say when it's the meeting room, I want the divider and meeting room London because it's the London office. that has come up. I'm just going to quickly do that for leads. The divider and leads has 4. And then, oh, wrong one. Equipment is the divider and equipment required and leads. And save that. So you can see as I was adding that logic, we've got the logic logo coming up on all of the other items on the form, with the exception of quantity of monitors. I only want the quantity of monitors to appear if someone ticks monitor within the equipment required. So we add logic inside of logic. So if I click on equipment required, it's only going to come up if someone has selected equipment, but this is going to be coming up if someone selects monitor. So if equipment required is a monitor, then show quantity of monitors and add. So you can see just really quickly using that logic, we are able to change the appearance of a form based on a selection. So we've got that, the monitor comes up, quantity of monitors comes in, etc. Okay. So some questions that were coming in while I was doing that demonstration, one of them was about the green background. So if you go into your account, you've got this personal colors and logos, and in there you can set your custom color, your custom background for your workspace. If you wanted to, you can also go into the workspace colors and logos and check. Now that's where it's been set as green. So we've got our green background, and our workspace logo is our Smarter Business Processes logo up in that top corner. And like I say, that is if you right click your workspace colors and logos. So hopefully that has answered your question there, Beverly. Is there a way for users to easily book a whole month, subject 20 times, only changing the date? That's a really good question, Charlotte. In this solution that I've written, no, I would need to build that in, and that's something that I can do after this webinar. But there, I will do a solution too within that workspace, so someone could do that. I don't know whether James can cover that on his or not, so I won't answer for him. So there we go. That is how you set up that conditional logic in the form in order to create a form that will use an availability report in order to help us fill in the form. Several people asked about the updating of data. We can't do that through a core Smartsheet solution, but I'm going to hand over to James because I've just put a little slide together. James does our enhanced solutions. So he takes what we do within Smartsheet and he thinks of a greater solution that ticks all the boxes that you can't necessarily do in Smartsheet core product. So within this demonstration, areas where enhancements would be beneficial is within our form, the Smartsheet form. We need to embed the form into a dashboard which was next to the availability report so that you could check when things were available whilst you were filling in the form. There was no way for the form to do real-time checking on availability. So that's one area where a web form technology like James can do would offer that real-time availability check. We needed lots of helper columns in the background grid in order to drive that functionality of the conditional logic. We also needed to use automation rules to delete dates that were out of scope. So within this solution, if I just go back, if I booked something and it became overbooked, then I would get an email. I'll just show you where that's driven from. In the automation menu, there are some workflows. Date is now overbooked. So when someone changes something and it says overbooked, you alert the person that's made that booking. If someone books an invalid date, i.e. a date that's beyond the 30 days on offer in this booking system, it just sends them an email saying, actually, that was unsuccessful because the date was invalid. So we're using automation rules to do our validation checking after the form has been submitted. However, in James's enhanced solutions, you can do that checking at the time of filling in the form, which is a lot cleaner. What else we do? We're not able to validate an email address, whereas the web technology form is able to validate an email address. Our forms would allow a double booking because we don't have that real-time checking. We're just collecting data, and it's up to us to analyze that data once it's been collected. Our forms would allow the same person to book the same room again and again and again, whereas James' version, you can have that validation going on whilst you're updating your form. And we are unable to offer an update by request function, which is what you were asking for in that chat window, whereas James's solution can do all these things. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to ask James to carry on this demonstration just to show you how a web form embedded in a Smartsheet dashboard can do all of those wonderful things.
Thanks, Debbie. Let me share my screen. Hopefully you can see that coming up. Yeah, okay. Right, so as you can see, Smartsheet Forms allow you to go a long way towards solutions that you require, but there are some limitations. One of the major limitations, as has been brought up and asked in questions, is you can't update an existing Smartsheet row. That's a major thing that you can't do with a Smartsheet form. So this very simple solution here, it's got no bells and whistles on it really. We'll show you how to do that. Well, we won't show you how to do it. It'll show you can do it. This is built. This is a web form, so it's built using HTML, PHP, JavaScript, various things like that. It sits on our server, this actual form, but it's embedded into a Smartsheet form, as you can see here. So let me just run you through what it does. So it's the same setup really as the form Debbie just showed you. So you have an email address here. First thing to say is you can, with a web form, you can put your tool tips or your tips and help information not on screen. You can have it as a hover over if you want, which can be quite useful just to keep the screen less cluttered. I put my email address in. If I don't have a valid email address, as Debbie was saying, if I just perhaps all email addresses have got a dot in them somewhere, if I take that out there and try and submit that, it won't let me. It tells me that's not a valid email address. One of the things that people very often do, I was finding, we wrote a vaccination booking system, so we had several thousands of people putting email addresses in, about something in the region of 60,000 people putting their email addresses in over the last few months. And the most common thing people do is that. Oh, no, don't. If I actually look at the screen while I'm doing it, that would help, wouldn't it? They do that. Because on many keyboards, the @ symbol and the apostrophe are the same key. And so the number of email addresses that were people who didn't get their booking confirmations through because they've done that is amazing. So anyway, so this is a bit of JavaScript checking there, just checks that it's a valid email address. Similarly, on the Smartsheet version, there's no easy way to limit the number of dates. It is possible, but it's very convoluted, and certainly you can't do it dynamically. You can't. You couldn't say, for example, I haven't bothered to do it here, but if all the meeting rooms and all the desks were full, say on the 22nd, I could make it so this date isn't selectable at all. I haven't put that functionality in, but that's perfectly doable in a web form. But here we've got, as you can see, it only starts on the 20th and goes through to 19th. That's the range. If I go to Debbie's form, that's the, and scroll up, you can see the range we've got here is from the 20th, or in fact the 21st, through, actually you changed it, you've added the day, through to the well, I had the 19th of this there. So you can select date ranges. Now, if I show you how this works, then we select just our location, and it brings up in the same way, really, a similar way as to the Smartsheet form. You can either select just a desk, you can select desk and some hardware or equipment, or you can specify a meeting room. Now, here, this is I've got that pre-selected, which you can obviously not select any of those, or you can have them pre-selected if you want. And you can select what you need and submit it. Now, this is a new entry there for this user, me. For this date, I didn't have a previous entry for that date, so I can just submit that request, and it counts as a new request. My booking's been submitted, and then the screen's going to go back again. An email can then be fired off from Smartsheet to give them all their details, and to as a confirmation. But let's say that we've made that booking, we want to amend it. So if I use the same email address again and go back to the 19th of the 8th, which is what it was, it will now tell me that there's a record there already, and it tells me what I did. So I can change that if I wanted to. So I can amend. What you're doing effectively is amending a row in Smartsheet rather than adding a new one. So if I decide, I don't know, in this case, I want to, no, say we just want the desk in this one, and submit that. Then what's happening in Smartsheet, if I go down to the bottom here and refresh. So I've got my record there. Where is it? 19th. That's odd. Okay, that's not what it's supposed to have. It's an empty desk. It's got that right, but it's not cleared these other items out, which it should have done. Let's see if it's still doing it. Okay, the joys of live demo. I've obviously messed something up there. Those should be deleted, but it's recognised it's an empty desk, so all the stats will work. It's just it should be clearing that out as well. So with a web form, clearly I missed something there, but you can select. Let's go to another date that has some data in it. So, for example, we have, let's go to an empty desk at the Leeds office here, which is on the 17th of the 8th. If I go to the 17th of the 8th, it should find that and tell me that I've already got a record on that day. There it is. And if I want to change that to a meeting room, and I want to book the Harewood room instead and submit that, then it should update. Let's see if it does this time. It should update that record. We should see it happen live. There you go. So it changed it to a meeting room and it updates it to the Harewood room. So I can't remember what some of the questions were now, but it's a very simple demonstration of the sorts of things that a web form can do. Some of the other things that you could do with it, of course, is that you could, upon selecting, I haven't done this in here because I've kept it simple, but upon selecting a date and a location, you could simply list all the people who are already booked there for that day. So if you need to be in the office at the same time as a certain colleague, you can very easily have interrogate the Smartsheet list and put the list of the names of the people who are currently going to be in the office on that day, or indeed who booked which meeting room, or without, you can do that all within the form without having to have a sort of separate list if that's what you want. I'm trying to think of some of the other questions.
Okay. Ollie's just asked a question in the chat window. James, can you select from a list in Smartsheet and update the corresponding row? So that sounds to me like a filter on the dashboard whereby you select a record from the filter and then it brings up that record and you can edit that record. So I think we have done that solution in a different webinar.
Yeah, we have, and effectively that's what
this is doing.
This is really, I'm trying to find one that I've already done. Effectively, that's Go for that one again. Effectively, that's what that is. That's finding an existing record. It's just not showing all the data from it. It's only showing the relevant data. But yes, that's grabbing that data, that record from Smartsheet, and allowing you to update certain elements of it. We could, of course, allow you to update put all the elements up there, and allow you to edit any of them that you like. It depends on the scenario. If you've got a row with that you have, 20 different items of data that you need to edit each time, then of course you wouldn't do it in this format, but it's perfectly doable. Yes, you could have a drop down if you have a Smartsheet with a unique IDs or with some sort of unique identifier. You put that in a drop down list and select it from the list, and all the data from that row will come up on the sheet, and you can edit it accordingly. Yeah. So that's just a simple version of the Smartsheet form that Debbie showed you, but with enhancements on allowing you to check a valid email address, which can be extremely important when you've got a large volume of people booking things. You find that people don't know whether they have no confirmation of their bookings. That's been a big problem over the last few months. You can select date ranges, and obviously you can amend, and indeed you could delete. I haven't got it on here, but you could, if it's an existing record, you could, I could put a button there to choose to delete that record if it was made in error and you don't want to book it anymore, or your circumstances have changed and you can't make it into the office. You can just delete that record from Smartsheet. So you can do all those things with a web form and much more besides. So I'll hand back to Debbie now, and if you have any questions on, yeah, go on, Deb, sorry.
So there was a question that was all about how do you present the list for selecting. So I think it's important to say that in this particular demonstration, we've got the email address as a drop-down list, but you could have any item as a drop-down list, or you could have a list whereby you select an item from the list in the form on the left-hand side, and it would update other widgets within that dashboard. I'm just trying to think which webinar we did cover that in. Was it last month's webinar, James?
Last month, yeah.
So if you wanted to see that working, go into our demonstration area on our website and have a look at June's webinar, and that would that will show you that functionality working there, Ole. Okay. There was one other thing that we were doing in testing, James, and I just wanted to put you on the spot. At the moment, when James is selecting a date that already has bookings in place, it is restricting the list of options that he's able to go ahead and book. So, for example, if we looked at the 3rd of August, we're already full in London, but there are a couple of meeting rooms available in London, but you can't book a desk on that date because it's already full. So when James selects the 3rd of August and chooses London, it doesn't say, do you want to book a desk or do you want a desk with hardware? It only gives the option for meeting room because that's the only thing left in London that is bookable. So it is doing that real-time availability checking. It's doing what we would do visually by reading that availability report, but it's doing that check for us. If you click on meeting room, I would expect only 2 meeting rooms to become available. Even though there are 3 in London, it already says Windsor is booked. So Windsor is no longer available as an option in here. So it is removing items that that are already booked from that choice within that web form. So I think that sort of summarizes what we were hoping to show you within this webinar. You can go a long way with the Smartsheet forms, but there are just those little areas whereby a web form embedded into a Smartsheet dashboard will just give you that little bit of extra functionality. If you wanted to discuss any of that with us, then obviously I'll hand back to Richard, who will summarize how you'd go about doing that. Who's on mute? Richard, you're on mute.
Is that better?
That's better.
Just testing. Oh, yeah, so, well, thank you. Excellent job. It does begs the question, I think colleagues here might just be asking, how can we set this up for us? How can we handhold them while it's set up? And then you run it yourselves without our assistance effectively. And we have been working very hard, as James has been working on this, to actually have something that's configurable so that you can control it yourselves. But the initial setup, we would need to help you with that. And I think the best way to answer any questions on cost or timescale, how long will it take? Best thing I suggest is we offer you a free consultation on that. And let us know time and a place. James and I are both in the UK, so think about sort of the hours difference. So good times are EST 5 hours, 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning is our afternoon. So let us know a good time for you, and we can have a conversation about your exact needs, and we can give you an exact cost and timescale for implementing that. We like to be challenged, and that includes things like connecting with accounting systems, which we do, ERPs, SQL, whatever. There's lots of ways you can take Smartsheet a stretch further than out of the box if you need it. And it can produce some fantastic automation. And we've had some phenomenal feedback on exactly that over the last few weeks. So if that's something that you'd like to look at carefully and cut out the manual labor, then we'd be only too pleased to talk about that. If you've got questions about the latest Smartsheet licensing structure, which is quite interesting, then Gwen, you can put your camera on, give us a wave, Gwen. Gwen looks after all the licensing that we help clients to select in the Smartsheet environment, and she'll take any questions that you like to pose to her about how to get the best out of the value for the money. And so that's our team. We have got our page on Smarter Controls for Smartsheet, which we'll post in the chat box. And if you want to have a look at that, it includes some nice little widgets which are out of the box, can be configured very rapidly. And in fact, they cause, people give us fantastic feedback on them, like drop-down list manager, backup manager, and a number of widgets that we're working on, which just make life easier, and it saves you having to update manually lots of different sheets when you've made a single change. So hopefully you've enjoyed it today, and I think it's fair to say we're not going to do a webinar in August because we're all supposed to be on holiday, but we'll come back in September, and we haven't, I don't think, yet decided subject for that. So we'd really like your feedback, please, because it's the feedback from the community and the people that attend these webinars that drive what we do. So thank you, and over to Debbie.
Yeah, you just summarised what I was going to say. So no webinar in August, but yeah, if you do have any topics that you'd like us to cover, then do put that on your eval forms, which I'll send out after this webinar's finished. A couple of you are asking for a link to our June webinar. I've just placed that link in the chat box. So if you pop into the chat box, you can go. It goes to our videos area on our website, and you can see there's a Time to Talk Dashboards is the webinar that we did in June that covers the being able to filter a form and see the widgets update real time within the dashboard. So thank you very much for your attendance and your support, and we hope to see you again in September, where we'll be advertising what it is we're doing in the lead up to that.